all forms of energy medicine, which include acupuncture, even things like Tai Chi and Qigong, are energy medicine, then how that can support jumpstarting your own innate resources and facilitating flow to allow yourself to heal.
Do you ever feel like you're giving from an empty cup? How do we build energy stores to heal and restore our bodies and give from a cup that overflows? Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast.
Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy. And we're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery through the 5 mountains of cutting-edge human development and mental fitness.
Our guest today is Judy Buchanan, an entrepreneur whose mission is to empower others via energy medicine and resiliency education to be all they can be and thrive. She's an Unbeatable Mind Coach, energy medicine practitioner in the form of Reiki, Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis practitioner, Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission's instructor, speaker, retired soldier, wife, and mother of 2. Judy spent more than 20 years as an active duty U.S. Army Medical Service Corps officer, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. As a retired soldier who's married to a former soldier, she understands firsthand the stressors experienced by first responders, service members, and their families. While serving in uniform and raising a family, Judy experienced multiple surgeries and began to experience chronic stress, anxiety, and pain. From these health challenges came the strength and passion to spark a change that led her to explore many holistic healing practices. Over the years, she's focused much of her training on the subtle energy systems of the body. Judy uses this knowledge and the skill set of Reiki to support her own healing and to facilitate clients improving their health and well-being. As an Unbeatable Mind Coach, Judy's passion is to inspire and empower others to live their unique life to its fullest potential and to facilitate breaking down barriers that might hinder them from doing so. The Unbeatable Mind training framework has transformed Judy's life, and she uses this knowledge to facilitate co-creating a new reality with her clients so they can thrive. Wanting to share all that she's learned with those who serve by running toward danger, Judy developed resiliency training programs in 2018 for her local police academy. She has a master's degree in business admin, a bachelor's degree in social work, and her practice is located in Frederick, Maryland. Welcome, Judy.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to talk with you both.
Oh, we are so delighted to have you and really excited too. We do like to break the ice with the question about what you're most excited about in your life right now.
I'm most excited about the training that I'm currently doing to explore myself further so that I can then bring that knowledge to others that I come in contact with. And so there's 2 things that I've just completed, which is Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, and I'm doing a breathwork 50-hour course in pranayama. So that's been really exciting for me too, to dig deeper into my own energy stores and feel into my own body so that I'm more aware of what's happening within inside of me so that I can, again, relay that to others when I come in contact with them.
Wow, that's powerful. That's good stuff. Co-creating new realities. I love it.
Yes. Every time we come in contact with anybody else, we have an energetic exchange and we support one another in creating something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Judy, we also love to hear about, a little bit about our guests. So what was your life like? What led you down the military path and then into energy healing? Because, at face value, they seem a bit opposite or, disconnected.
Yes, they do seem a little bit opposite. So I went to college to get a degree in social work. So I always had the understanding that I was supposed to help others. I've always been good in working with others. And my father, who's my hero, would say, Judy, you need to go support other people. So I knew that I wanted to go to school for social work. And then while I was in college, the first couple of weeks, a gentleman who was in ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training Corps, approached me and said, hey, are you interested in taking this course called ROTC, which was to train people to enter the military. And he's like, you can go rappelling, you can go whitewater rafting, you're going to do all that hula stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because I love adventure. This is why I'm excited to be here. And so I was like, all right, let me try this. And so when I got involved, I realized, oh, wow, they can also pay for my education. This may be a career that I could become a part of. And while I was in ROTC, they sent me to airborne school. So I got to jump out of airplanes. Like, what's better than that?
How cool is that, right?
Yeah, hello. And then I was sent to Europe, and I'm like, I had never traveled outside the country. So, it was a combination of two things. It was the combination of the desire to be of service and the desire to help others. And that's what I did in the military too. And then also this sense of adventure that I have, this sense of exploration. So those two combining factors brought me into the service. And what they decided to do was make me a medical service corps officer. So even though I have an undergraduate in social work, I actually did not do that in the military. I did what's called logistics. I had those jobs that, of course, all leaders have in the military. So I was a platoon leader, I was a company commander, executive officer, all that those types of positions, but then we specialize into a particular area. And so I specialized into medical logistics. So supplying the doctors and nurses in the hospitals what they needed, both in the country or on the battlefield. And so I had the opportunity to see 29 countries as a part of being in the Army. And my family and I lived overseas on 2 different tours. My husband deployed, I deployed. So we had a lot of adventures, that's for sure. But along with that came lots of challenges too. Being in the service is absolutely physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually demanding, very demanding. And I had positions that were high stress positions, responsible for quite a lot. Even at the age of 25, 26, I'm a company commander. I'm responsible for 136 people. That can take a toll from the stress perspective. So throughout my career, I also gave birth to 2 children in my 20s. So I was a young officer when I gave birth, and both my husband and I were working full time. And so all of that, along with the demands, started to really take a toll in my mid-30s. So in my mid-30s, I got quite sick. And as it says, I had multiple surgeries across for various things while being in this injuries, disease mechanisms that started to develop because of the stress that I was having. And in my mid-30s, I started to have panic attacks. Okay, did you just hear that I jumped out of airplanes? Yes. Right. Okay, so this person here who is adventurous and wants to go and do started to have panic attacks. And that, along with my gastrointestinal pain, which was extraordinary, really pushed me to start looking into more holistic practices. Western medicine had done a phenomenal job of, repairing me at different points, but they don't do a great job in chronic situations. And so even though I was popping pills for my gastrointestinal system, I realized that I needed to do things differently. And so that's when I started to explore not only different avenues for nutrition and things of that nature, but how do I regulate this stress that I'm feeling within my body? How do I change the pattern? And it was through energy modalities. The first one that I tried actually was acupuncture. Fantastic. I still keep going today. In fact, I was there yesterday. I go once a month just to maintain my system. But while healing, which was a long journey of healing, because this was my mid-30s, I had another surgery in my 40s. And I was feeling a lot of pain in my body, but it wasn't connected to my body. And I hadn't really ever explored somatic practices too. So I had never explored how can massage help me? How can fascial release support me, or Rolfing support me? And it was actually a massage therapist. So I went from acupuncture and then it started to combine massage, and the massage therapist was like, you got to try Reiki. And I'm like, what is that? Again, logistical mind, right? So very logical. And she said, I believe in this so much for you that you go ahead and go and you'll take, I used to buy packages and go ahead and take one of the packages. So she was literally paying out of her own pocket for me to go see this woman. I was like, all right, I'm going. And the first time I went, I could feel in my body the energy moving from the places that I had pain. I carry a lot in my upper shoulders and my upper back, and my hands started to get hot and tingly. And I was like, holy moly, literally got off the table and said to her, I need to learn this. I need to know what's going on here. And so I didn't know that it would manifest into a profession for me. I just knew that I needed to explore this further. And so I started taking classes. And then eventually I got to the point where I decided I wanted to form my own business and help people with this modality and help them to understand more about how all forms of energy medicine, which include acupuncture, even things like Tai Chi and Qigong, are energy medicine, then how that can support jumpstarting your own innate resources and facilitating flow to allow yourself to heal.
Oh, beautiful. You know, what, for our listeners, what does it mean to be able to connect to your body and to feel?
Yeah, well, you know, there's several different people who have said the issues live in the tissues, right? And so somatic practices, this is where the information is stored in our bodies. So from the time that you're conceived, your body starts to remember your experiences. You may not cognitively remember the experiences, but your body does. And that's for good reason. It's to help you navigate the environment that you are in to survive. Your body always wants to live and survive. So if we become disconnected from what we're truly feeling inside of us, then we don't allow ourselves to heal, transmute, transform energy within our physical being. So, you know, one of the things that the military taught me very well was how to disconnect from my body in order to push through pain. You know, you do a 15-mile road march with rock and weapon, and my heels would be gone at mile 2, like literally skin torn off, right? So I learned how to endure pain and not connect with it. Now that can be very beneficial for the moment, but long term, that's not a pattern we want to keep in place, because how we heal, how we transmute energy inside of us is we actually have to feel it. We have to allow for the flow of whatever that energy is so that it no longer stays with us. Because we got to remember that energy is not created nor destroyed. It's simply transformed. And this is physics. This is the way our bodies work, you know? So I think it's really important. And I'm a living example of this, where I was feeling pain, but I wasn't connected to my body. I wasn't helping my body move those discordant energies, that emotion, which is biochemistry, you know, that is generated every time you have an experience, and it can get stored in different places. I didn't allow for that to flow. And so then the energy pathways become congested. And this is the beginning of, you know, patterns of pain or emotional struggle. So yeah, I think it's really important for people to explore any somatic, any body practice. It could be yoga, it could be different forms of exercise, but allowing yourself to also feel into that is really important.
When I think about energy and vitality, I think about a kid. They have the energy to play, run around, climb things. That energy that feels like you just can't contain yourself. It's the stuff we've always wished they could just bottle up and sell to us, right? Well, this company's found a way to do just that. Amari's Happy Juice Pack. Mood, motivation, energy, things our bodies can naturally produce when both our guts and our brains are happy and communicating. And we can actually improve that process of communication across the axis of the gut and the brain. This is cutting-edge science. This is game-changing information. This is where science meets soul. This is Amari, and we're helping people feel better naturally. Boost your serotonin and GABA. Balance your neurotransmitters. Nourish your gut. The things that make you want to do. Start feeling better the natural way. Check out the links in the show notes for discounts and more information.
Do you feel that there's one somatic practice that is more beneficial than another, or is it a combination of practices, or is it more individually based?
Well, I'm a holistic person, meaning that I like to look at how I can tap into all of these different practices at different times. But, I think that if you're attracted to a certain modality, then go explore that. So I don't think I think it is individualized in the sense that, some people may be afraid of needles. So, they're not going to probably go towards acupuncture. But there's other modalities like Reiki that are non-invasive, have no contraindications, that are also working with the energy systems of the body, or Qigong. And so I don't think there's one that is like end all be all, because we are too complex as human beings. What I really encourage people to do is explore what interests them, and then, build on that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So I'm going to equate this to, being an outdoor adventurer. The more skill sets you can bring to bear or learn, the more opportunities you have out in the world. So I think the same holds true for different somatic movements. So yoga definitely has its astounding benefits, but so does Tai Chi, Qigong. Acupuncture is amazing, and chiropractic, Reiki. It's all, if you can bring the whole package together and utilize the different modalities, in my opinion, at least, you open yourself up to being curious and exploring and finding out what works best for you. But also, I think your body needs different things at different times, perhaps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I was drawn to Reiki. One of the things for me was, and Reiki just means, it's a Japanese word, right? That just means universal life force energy. It's an overarching term, just like yoga means unity of mind, body, spirit, and energy medicine can encompass all these different things. So the reason why Reiki was so beneficial for me is because I was carrying trauma from early childhood experience, and then things that happened along my life. And so I was a jumpy person. And even though I could work with acupuncture, needles were fine for me. It can be intense a little bit at times, because you feel this pin going into you a little bit, depending on what the situation is for your body. So Reiki is just light touch or no touch, and it's working with the energy systems of the body and helping the whole person become deeply relaxed. And in that relaxation, we activate the parasympathetic of the autonomic nervous system, right? Which is that heal, digest, rest aspect. And we as humans, we need touch. Our first language is touch. We don't understand words as infants. We understand energy. We understand touch and how that feels. And so one of the reasons I think I was drawn to that is for people who have elevated nervous systems, because they've been in fight, flight, freeze mechanisms where they're having to do things that cause them to be in that arena. They need to be retraining their body on how to come into a sense of peace and calm, and having a practitioner that is helping to guide them in that then allows a level of safety. I mean, we're supposed to come into community as human beings. We're not supposed to do this stuff all by ourselves. And so I think loving touch, or this centering energy, can be really beneficial, especially for those who have had level of trauma, which is basically everybody, because being born wasn't easy, was it?
I don't remember the process, but I'm sure it was stressful.
Yes.
For somebody.
Well, and this is what I tell the police officers. I mean, literally no one exists in the world without some level of trauma, right? And I always say that comment. I'm like, what do you think happened when you were born?
I can give you the picture, but
yeah, exactly.
So with Reiki, we're releasing pain or trauma. How does that get so trapped? I guess, why are they so disconnected from what the energy is telling them, or disconnected from their bodies?
Yeah, that's a complex question because there are a lot of factors in that one. Let's start with belief system. So I think part of it is, even from our science, where the biology that I grew up was that the body is a machine. And so even culturally, we separated in our Western mindset, we separated the body from the spirit, and we could probably interchange energy with spirit, that in terms of words. So, from a cultural perspective, we have separated on multiple levels. Let's even just look at the medical community. If you go to a doctor and let's say you have a heart issue, in our current structure, you would go see a heart doctor, but lots of times we're not exploring other things that are happening in one's life emotionally. What's happening with the gastrointestinal system? And, so we culturally, belief wise, we've separated the parts of ourselves. And we even say, is that a mental issue? Is that an emotional issue?
Right.
Is that a physical issue? And I'm like, okay, people, tell me how to separate that, please, please. So I think culturally, that's one of the factors that why people become disconnected from their body is education and understanding and belief that is coming in to say, this needs to operate as a machine. And I think that is changing culturally for us. I've seen a lot of changes in the last 20 years in more holistic viewpoints, understanding that there is an integration of emotion, mental, physical, spiritual, or intuitional, and how that all plays together. So that's, I think, one thing. The other thing you asked about is how does trauma or how do emotions get stored? Well, I think there's a great book out there. It's talking about, there's a couple of great books. One of the books is It Didn't Start With You by Wallens. And this is a psychologist that talks about how information is moving through our DNA. So around the concept of epigenetics. So some of this that you experience in your body is not just from your experience, it's ancestral. So, when you were created from your mother and your father, and that DNA came together to, create a unique aspect of you, but you were bringing forward aspects of mom and dad. And so it's not just the dark hair or the blue eyes, it's what were ancestral experiences. And this may explain why some people have these extraordinary fears for what they don't believe. They don't know why they have it because they never experienced something with it. And so there's great science in that book that has been done talking about how information comes through the DNA. So part of that may be ancestral experience that is literally living in the blueprint of who you are. Now, the thing to remember as we move on to the third concept is that you can change anything. You have power over yourself, and your blueprint is changing at many different times across your life. So it's not just that you absorb trauma and then you can transmute it, but you absorb the great stuff too. And you can work with that as well. So, let's not think just negative, but also there's positive and good stuff that comes out of that too. So that's the second piece, is to understand that some of this comes through your ancestors. The third is you may have experience, and in that experience, there may not have been an opportunity to clear that energy. So as an example, I was with the police officers the other day at the academy, and they were going to be pepper sprayed. Yeah, that's fun. And so in that example, how somebody might normally behave to transmute that energy, maybe shaking or crying about it, like they're in extraordinary pain. You don't think they're going to cry in that scenario? No. Right. So in somebody's experience, they may have been shut down or shut themselves down in transmuting that energy in a way that is naturally flowing. And one of those things may be not to cry. Like I was taught not to cry. You better not cry in front of anybody in the military, right? But I'm human. And actually, one of the ways that we get cortisol, which is that long-term stress hormone, out of our body is through tears. So that was a great science experiment too. They looked at, crying from cutting an onion versus crying to emotionally emote. And when you cut an onion, there's no cortisol. But when you cry for emotional emoting, there's cortisol in there. So it's another way to cleanse literal toxin, because cortisol in the body long-term is a toxin. It will cause problems for us. It's supposed to be used short-term to give a robust burst of energy, and that's what happened to me. I was long-term cortisol, right? And that started to develop all my dis-ease, being out of balance issues. Yeah. So we talked about those three things, I think, are the primary three things that are causing people to not transmute. The concept around the body being a machine and disconnecting from it in that way, ancestral belief systems and information coming through the DNA. And then when they do have an experience, when you have an experience, it's not just, it's physical, but there's emotion with that, right? The emotion is the driving force. And this is biochemistry that's released, and it can get lodged in different places. And then energetically, you can have that kind of congest too. And let me give you a quick example. This is what I tell people all the time about how the body functions. If, let's say I get hit in the arm, like somebody punches me in the arm, and I'm like, ow, right? What's happening in that moment is your muscles constrict, your fascia, which is the connective tissue, constricts to protect that space. The body then floods the area to, again, inflame it, to protect it, and then also starts to release or transform those cells that have been injured. So along with getting hit, I might have gotten angry and pissed off at that person for hitting me, or I might have felt like sadness or pain or grief. So that's happening simultaneously too. And so since everything is locked down to protect, how easy is the flow of energy moving through that space? Right.
Yeah,
So this is what the energy modalities do. All of them, they're stimulating, they're jump starting the body's ability to heal itself by causing them to either be stimulated or come into deep relaxation in their nervous system so that the person can transform for themselves. So everybody outside of you, doctors, nurses, myself, they're all facilitators. You still got to heal you. Like, even if a doctor comes in and does surgery and takes something out, you think you're healed? No, you got to still heal yourself, right? So that's what we're all doing, is we're facilitating someone else's healing.
Beautiful. So how does this, what's the process of Reiki? Or said differently, Judy, I'm a patient of yours. I've never had Reiki or utilized this modality before. What happens? What do we do?
Yeah, well, people practice differently. I'm a talker, as you can tell. So I really like to help people understand, even before they get on the table, especially if they've never had any form of energy medicine, what might be happening, right? Because one of my big goals is to create safety, comfort, and support for them. So fear of the unknown is huge for all people. It's just innate to human beings. So I would first start with explaining to them what they might feel or experience. And, first of all, let's think about our own bodies. This is something that is natural to all of us, to have an energetic exchange. We naturally do this with people that we meet, or let's say you have children and you have a sick child, you're going to hold that child. And what happens is electrons, if we're healthy, we're more vibrant, we have more energy, then the energy is going to move to the sick child to help that child to heal, because how we heal is energetic in nature. Yes, we need all the nutrients and all that good stuff, but the cells need energy to reproduce new cells. So this is something that's natural to all of us as humans. The thing that I've done is studied to focus my energy more readily and connecting with the energy that is literally surrounding us all the time, 24/7. So however you conceive of that, whatever you conceive of what's generated this earth here and all of us in it, I'm directly focused on connecting with that. So I'll explain to them first that the things that they could experience when they're having this is maybe hot, heat coming off my hands. I'm usually a cold hand person, and they're like, oh my gosh, do you have a heating pad on your hand? I'm like, nope. It's so heat, cold, which is kind of like a release, tingling. So like when your hand wakes up and the blood starts to flow. So when the energy starts to flow, you might feel tingling because there's been congestion, and here it comes. Twitching. So those micro twitches, like, when you're going to sleep, you watch somebody go to sleep, they're releasing energy or transforming energy as they're going to sleep. Some people see colors. So about a fourth of my clients, about 25% will be like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this beautiful purple color, which makes sense because it's energy, right? So energy, and we have different ways of sensing in our bodies that we don't always explore. So it's not just what you see with your naked eye, but you can translate energy with your brain. That's what it's doing all the time. That's how we actually operate. So, and then spiritual experiences it's always based upon the person's belief system. So whatever that person's belief system is, they may have connections to loved ones who've passed on, or to guides and others that may come into their experience, because what's happening then when they get on it, so they're fully clothed. So it's not like massage. They're fully clothed. They either get on the table or they sit in a chair. When I was working with patients in the hospital at the cancer center, they would be sitting in chairs, still as effective, whether sitting in a chair or laying down. And then I'll put on some nice music to help them get into a more relaxed state. And I'll walk them through a meditation as I start to connect with them. And then they will start to sense and feel, because I'm directing the energy that encompasses me along with the energy that I'm connecting to that person in a very centered and loving way. So when I operate and when I do this, I'm not thinking about what's happening with the kids. I'm not thinking about what's on my list. I am completely focused on that individual. And then I might be sensing, as all humans do, what might be causing some of the issue, whether it be emotional or physical, mental, or spiritual, because we all emanate energy from our bodies. We have about 30 to 50 trillion cells. Dr. Bruce Lipton, his science is out there. And we all emanate energy from our body at least at a minimum 3 feet, which has been scientifically proven that the heart emanates energy 3 feet. So we're all emanating information in the form of energy. And then we're also receiving it. And we have these little antennas on our cellular structure that reads the energy of the environment. So what I'm doing is extraordinarily natural. It's like what all human beings do. I've just decided to focus my attention in this way. And every practitioner, just like in any other, profession, they will have a basis of understanding, but it's going to be unique to each practitioner because they're unique individuals and they bring their own skill sets, their own background to the table. So I would always tell people, if you're going to explore this, trust your intuition and go to a person that you feel guided to go to. And if you have a session and it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Maybe try with somebody else or try a different modality. But it is very, very supportive of people getting into that healing state within their body. And for me personally, I often feel emotion from other people. So I will ask them to help. I will guide them in transforming that energy within them by using breath and visualization with the support of the energy that they're receiving. So
beautiful. Yeah. So, if you would have asked me 15, 20 years ago about energy and in Reiki, anything other than chiropractic, right? Because I've been a long-standing supporter and user of chiropractic care. I would have been like, yeah, this is kind of wooey stuff. But when you bring back the physics aspect of this, and I guess for listeners, if you just picture this, right? We're children of our parents, we're children of the earth, but we're also, these things, the earth would not exist without the energy of the sun, and everything's in vibration, and there's energy all around us. So if you just think about it, it makes sense that we have these antennas, these receptors that you talked about, and we're constantly giving and receiving different forms of energy, whether it be low level or high level. So it's really not wooey stuff. There's a scientific basis to all of the stuff that we're talking about.
This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed Unbeatable Mind Coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development, designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the Big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom-created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour Unbeatable Mind Coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today.
absolutely. And in Western medicine, diagnostically, we use energy tools to both, what do you think a laser surgery is? Like that's an energy tool. And then we're also using it diagnostically to say, oh, an EKG, is reading the frequency of what the heart is doing, right? So it is something that we're starting to explore as in Western medicine further, what biofeedback, sending energy back into the body, and so this is something that we've been doing as human beings literally since humans have existed. It's just that in our Western mindset, there was a time about 150 years ago where we started to really separate out all the pieces as opposed to looking at the whole person. And here's the other thing that's really fascinating to me too, that I learned too, is that, when you're out in the environment and your body responds first. It's not your brain that actually responds first. It's your body that receives the information in the form of energy, mainly into the heart and into the gastrointestinal system, which is called the enteric brain, because there's so much of the nervous system in that area. It sends information up to the brain. The brain puts context, understanding, story to the experience and sends information back down into the body. So it's not the brain that responds, it's the body that innately responds. So the body has to read energy in order to keep you safe, to navigate what you need to navigate in your life. And I never really thought about that until I got into this practice. And that's why, again, going back to the body, somatic physical practices, and then combining that with emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever that is for you. There's no like right or wrong, is the way to really transmute, transform whatever your previous experience is. Because here's the deal too, that I want people to really understand, is that just because you have, let's say, post-traumatic stress from a situation, you can absolutely change the energy behind that. So you may not forget the memory. That's not what this is about. Like, the memory is, it happened, it was there, it occurred. But what we want to do is we want to transform that energy of angst and sorrow or struggle or anxiety or fear, so that it no longer exists in the same way attached to that memory, so that we're not going back to that over and over again. And I've literally done that in some of my post-traumatic stress instances, where my body was responding to a situation over and over and over again in a very derogatory way. And I'm like, I'm not living like this forever. And I also did another technique called emotional freedom technique. And that is a tapping technique that can be used. And then a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists, licensed counselors are using a technique called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reintegration, which that also, FYI, is energy stimulus to the body.
Wow.
Nice.
So much information.
I know. I love this stuff. I could
I
chat
do
with you guys
too.
for days about this stuff because
Right.
I love it so much. And I really want people to know that there's not one way to heal, you know, that there are multiple ways. And as long as you stay open and exploring and allow yourself to become vulnerable at times, then you can transform what's happened to you and you don't have to carry it with you for the rest of your life. And oh, by the way, when you do that, you not only support yourself, but you support everybody else around you because you're emanating energy every single day and they're feeling it. And you change your energy signature, they respond differently.
So I'm a client. I come in and you're helping me transform and transmute this energy into a positive state. And I'm pretty kind of bound up, right? My energy nodules are pretty stuck. And we get things flowing. Now what? You talk about vital energy maintenance. What does that look like? And I'm presuming that's what this is, right? It's continuation.
Yes. Yeah. Well, first of all, just because we stopped doing the work, the body continues on. So I tell people, you know, you may have you may have some emotional release a day or two later because we've just jump started your own innate processes. And then to maintain that, that's part of the talking that I like to do, the coaching that I like to do. So I give them different ideas based upon what's happening in their life, what is the physical aspects that are going on, emotional aspects that are going on. But the one tool that I teach them that everybody gets is that the breath can be utilized to transform energy. The number one way to control, to regulate your nervous system is through the breath. And so we talk about that. And one of the techniques that I use that is very simple that I'm sure other people are using too, is just to become self-aware and start to identify what you're feeling. Maybe you don't really know. Maybe it's just feeling like angst and you start to feel like a pressure in your chest and you don't really understand it. You don't need to understand it. What you can do is just take a moment, center with yourself, and start to use your breath and your own innate power to transform the energy by, let's say, if I have pain, heaviness, and let's say it's like anxiety, then I'll imagine bringing in light in the form of, you know, energy, because light has been proven to reconstruct DNA. This is scientific experiments that you can find on heartmath.org. So imagine bringing in light on your inhale, and on the exhale, I'm going to release anxiety. And so you're telling your body, which, by the way, you're God to your cells, right? Your body doesn't know where it is, space and time. You put the story to it. This is how virtual reality glasses work. You respond as if you're actually in some other place, and you're not. You're in your bedroom, you know, and your body has all this biochemistry happening, like you're in the fight or whatever. So where you put your mind, then the body will support it, right? So if you start to tell your body, I'm ready to release, transform, let go of this angst, and you use your breath to slow it down, to allow for that to transform, then you will notice a difference. You will notice that heaviness may start to lift or be lighter in some way. So one of the primary tools that they get upon leaving is that to maintain their own energy is to become self-aware and start to use their breath and their own energy stores to help themselves. So like if you have an upset stomach, how likely is it for you to put your hand on your stomach, right? And when you put your hand on your stomach, there's a sphygmomanometer, I don't know if I said that correctly, that can read the energy coming off the hand, and it resonates with 0.5 hertz to like I think 35 hertz. And so the point is that energy is coming off in waves from your hand. And so you're supporting yourself by holding your stomach and allowing that energy of yourself to support yourself. So it's not just somebody else doing it with you. You can help yourself. You can help yourself navigate all of these different things. So yeah, so part of it is in the vital, maintaining your own energy is this self-care, right? And there's many different levels of self-care, but the simple ones, the simple self-care, which is totally free, you can do it anytime, is breathe and use your mind to transform your energy.
Yeah. You know, we've had different guests on the podcast talking about breath work. And, you know, one of the reasons why, or the big reason why we have different guests provide their insights and their experiences with breath work is because it is free and it is powerful. It's transformative. Even as we're talking here, I was getting a little excited about the discussion, and I'm thinking, what's my next question? Where are we going? And I had to stop and go, bring it back to the here and now, and be present with the discussion that's happening. Don't think about what's next. Now, so you mentioned self-talk, or talking, you know, about telling your body that you're ready to release. We hear a lot about the power of positive thinking, or the power of positive mantras and self-talk. What role do you think that plays? I mean, is it a major aspect here, or is it just a little piece?
Well, I think it is for all of us a huge component in how we operate in the world and whether or not we're going to pursue or do different things. Now, it doesn't mean that we're never supposed to think negatively, right? Part of allowing ourselves to feel is to be in our stuff. And so that means that maybe you are having a moment where you're thinking negatively, but if we cut that off at some level, which can be beneficial, but we also need to balance that with allowing ourselves to emote whatever feeling that we're having, whatever thought pattern that we're having, so that we can then transform it. But positive thinking and helping ourselves to move through anything is been proven multiple times over in terms of helping people to heal, helping people to do what they need to do in life, because positive thinking creates possibility, right? So I think it was, well, there's lots of different studies on positive thinking in general, and I'm trying to think of the gentleman who broke the 4-minute mile, and it starts with a B. Basham, I think it was, in the 50s is when there was this concept, right, across the world that nobody could run faster than a 4-minute mile. So he believed that he could, positive thinking, and he broke that 4-minute mile. And as soon as he did, a whole bunch of other people started to think like he did and started to break the 4-minute mile. So for me, positive thinking equates to possibility. And so if we're limiting ourselves with whatever thoughts that we're having, like, I can't do this, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to screw this up, then that also directly affects our emotional state, which affects our biological state. So thought is frequency. Thought triggers the nervous system to release emotional chemistry, which then stimulates the body to do whatever it needs to do in that situation. So if you're thinking that you're not a good person, then you're going to retract and maybe like pull away, as opposed to connecting with others and opening up. So there is a whole cycle that happens with thought that then creates the biochemistry, that then creates the physical reaction, that then creates the action or pattern. And that can be broken by starting to think differently. But in thinking differently, we have to also explore, why was I thinking this way in the first place? Like, what is it that's driving me down this road? Is there past trauma, or is there past belief system that needs to be changed as a part of this? So it's not kind of like, it's not one thing. It is, again, going holistically and looking at this. But for me, positive thinking or just possible thinking is really, really important. And I would say it's a critical factor because, like we just talked about, we're literally God to ourselves. Like where our mind goes, our body follows.
Mm-hmm.
And the reverse can happen too. Like if you're not feeling well, how much more are you going to be probably cranky versus happy and go lucky, right? Your body is not feeling good. So you're probably going to go more into the negative. But just like with those virtual reality glasses, you can go to a whole nother place in your mind and your body responds as if it's in that space. So be conscious of what you are thinking and how that's going to impact you long term.
Yeah. You know, I kind of like to think of it as it's almost like talking to your best friend, your internal speech or dialogue, because this is the person that knows you the best. I mean, basically the person that knows everything about you. And imagine your best friend in the world talking to you in the way that you talk to yourself. How would that make you feel? And that internal dialogue is basically that person speaking, telling us these things, and we react the same way. Right. So I've personally experienced that change of self-talk and felt how powerful that can be. It's amazing. So it really is. I completely agree that it is so important to the process.
And I would say too that you want to invoke the emotion, because the emotion with that positive self-talk is the chemistry that makes the change. So if we're just saying something without putting the emotion to it, then it's not as powerful as it could be if we put the emotion, the feeling in our body to whatever that self-talk is.
Yes, because we remember feelings and emotions and how we felt, but how often do we remember the exact phrase, how it was said?
Right. So
but
it's
we know
a
how
combo.
It made us feel. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that biochemistry actually is what locks into place that memory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Judy, another modality that you employ is beyond quantum healing hypnosis. That's intriguing to me. You know, when I think of hypnosis, what comes to mind immediately is, and you probably know where I'm going with this, is that guy up on stage getting somebody from the audience to do something, quack like a duck or, something, but that's not what you're doing here, right?
No. And, even the people that go up on stage, well, first of all, let's recognize that your subconscious is always awake. So even when you're asleep, there is a part of you that we would deem the subconscious that is still awake and can respond to the world around you. So no one can be forcibly hypnotized. They have to want to be hypnotized because they are in control of themselves all the time. So these people that are quacking like a duck are willing to quack like a duck. So and so all hypnosis is facilitating an altered state within another person. You're bringing your brainwave state into possibly theta, which is that deep, like meditative state. And the Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, which is Candace Crowe-Coleman who put this together, is really exploring with each individual aspects of themselves that they want to explore. So perhaps they want to have a greater understanding of why a certain belief system shows up, or maybe they want to understand a relationship better, or they want to heal an illness or help themselves to transmute something that's in their life. Or I'm going to go quantum on you for those people that believe that there are multiple dimensions and quantum physics is real, which that is the primary physics in place, then explore perhaps other existences of that person, that soul, and how that's impacting the current situation for that individual. So I'm a facilitator. And really in that facilitation, we're exploring you, but we're going into a place that you're not normally in, which is this subconscious aspect of yourself, to gather information, to understand yourself better. And it can be quite powerful for people to transform belief systems, to transform emotions, to have better understandings for themselves of who they are. So it's very safe. It's non-invasive, again, and it's really, again, you can't be hypnotized unless you want to be hypnotized. And for me personally, I'm an analytical person. I like to explore, and I'm open, but you got to show me stuff. So this is why the science thing is in there. And so I personally have been hypnotized at least 20 times or so, and I've explored many different aspects, and you can change the energy of a situation when your mind state is in this altered state too. So children from 0 to 7 or 8 are in a hypnotic state in their brain waves, and they're literally absorbing and creating their subconscious. And as we grow older, we go into different brainwave states, and it's not as easy to change behaviors, to change beliefs, to change patterns as it is when you are a child. And so the hypnosis can be extraordinarily beneficial for people to change patterns within their life, because they're getting into that hypnotic state that then allows for the quick transformation, reprogramming of the cellular structure, right? Because what we have, this is really fascinating. I'm going to side note for a second. The definition of a cell wall is a liquid crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. That's the same definition as a computer chip.
Wow.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're taking the software and we're reorganizing, we're upgrading the software of your system.
Yeah.
Because it's a reprogramming. I mean, everybody talks about how everything you don't do and do is training you. Well, that training is a program that is then built into patterning, right? This is how you operate. This is how we create new patterns. So when you start to understand that your cells are operating like mini computers, and you can change the programming through some of these different techniques, game changer.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
If you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I've found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called KOKORO yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes.
What do you have any experience with using auditory stimulus or stimuli for changing brainwave patterns or music even? So there's go ahead.
So I don't have, I've not studied those modalities at length. However, I have experienced with music, definitely changing my brainwave state. I can get into a much deeper state of relaxation with certain tones. I have friends that use tuning forks frequency to help the body to rebalance and heal in that way. I also have a friend that has a whole sound table. So the whole body is experiencing the frequency of the information, the music that's coming through, or the tones that are coming through. And if you really want to know more about that too, you can look at it's simply, again, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's the cellular biologist, and he talks about how energy frequency is what manipulates or changes the cell. So what he does is he puts cells into 2 different petri dishes, and he'll expose one cell to discordant frequencies that are unnatural to the environment, and watch the cell respond to it. And then on the other one, put in these really great frequencies that are healthy and natural to what we're supposed to experience. And we find that in music. You know, if something is discordant in music, it sometimes is very off-putting, versus music, like even classical music, can change the brainwave states and allow somebody to become more relaxed. But what's interesting is the cell is just receiving the frequency of the music, and the discordant energy, the cell starts to shrink and die. And the music that is, you know, natural or vibrant music facilitates that cell being healthy, like thriving. It doesn't pull away. The cell literally pulls away, like moves in the petri dish away from the frequency. So, wow. Yeah. So music and different levels of frequency, and this is the same with biofeedback, right? They're sending energy in particular frequencies into the body. So that can be extraordinarily beneficial for us. And then we also have to think about, like, what are we being exposed to on a regular basis? This is why some of the fight is about with our cellular technology, you know, the 5G and other things. Like, there hasn't been a ton of work around long-term impacts of discordant frequencies with the bodies, but our subtle energy systems are being affected by everything that we're exposed to. And they have proven that you can get acoustic neuromas from putting the cell phone next to your head, which is, you know, this problem with your brain. You know? So, you know, so it is being conscious. It's not like we're going to get, like, I use a cell phone, right? We're not going to get rid of the technology, but we do need to recognize how frequencies can affect us and use opportunities to connect into natural frequencies. This is why we talk about going into the environment and working, you know, in nature, walking in nature, or listening to uplifting music and frequencies and tones. You know, if you also think about tones, there's many religious traditions or Zen traditions that talk about toning, you know, and using the voice to create frequency and healing for others. So I haven't studied it, but I definitely have had experience with it for sure from those multiple friends and practitioners that have utilized it on me.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise, not an area of study for me, but, you know, I've been listening to music, well, my whole life, right? Most of us have, but it was certainly a major part of my childhood. And, you know, there's a number of reasons for that. And it's gone, you know, run the gambit from, you know, heavy metal to rock to classical and, you know, Baroque type to Yo-Yo Ma. So definitely, you know, the whole spectrum. And if anybody's curious in exploring this a little bit, I'm a big fan of Jonathan Goldman and his sound healing work. I think he's got some amazing compact discs out there. And I think he's out of Boulder, I believe. But he's just done some amazing work like Chakra Chants and the Ultimate Om. Really good stuff. And so thank you for sharing that. If it's okay with you, though, I'd like to switch just a little bit and talk about the type of work, resiliency training that you're doing with law enforcement agencies. Because to me, that's a major step in evolutionary step in the law enforcement community, right? Is because when we think of cops, and a lot of the cops that I know over the years, you know, real, you know, they don't play in that sandbox at all.
No, and this has been fantastic. I love it. I love working with those guys. And I was invited in 2018 when I met one of the police officers who was an instructor. He was the firearms instructor. And the commonality we had was being in the service. He was in the Army as well as Special Forces and had been in combat. And we were chatting and I said, well, what do you do? And he's like, I'm the firearms instructor. And I gave him my card. I said, if you want your guys to fire better, give me a call. And so
Nice.
I love it.
He did. And he said, we really need somebody to come in and work with the students on regulating their nervous system. Stress management was the term that he used. And I said, great, I'll put a program together. And so we actually met in 2017. And in the next class, the 2018 class, is when I started to go in to work with them. And we started with first just understanding how the body operates and the primary mechanism to regulate the nervous system, which was breathing. Like if you can control your breath, you're going to help yourself tremendously in regulating the stress within your body. And so we started to put together a program there where I came in for 3 hours and helped them to understand the subtle energies of the body, help them to understand what's happening physiologically when they're having a stressful moment occur, and helping them to understand how important it is to start to regulate down to an alert state, but not one that they are losing control. Because, if the heart rate goes up to like 185 beats per minute, you start to lose not only are you losing small motor, but gross motor, and then you start to have auditory exclusion, you start to create tunnels within your eyes. And so there's a whole bunch of physiological issues that are going to happen when the heart rate goes up to 185 beats per minute. So we talk about how do we bring the heart rate down? Of course, that's going to be through breath and thought, like frequency of thought. And so really helping them to understand that, and then so that they could navigate through the academy, which is, it's really stressful to go through the academy. But then also the second part of what we would learn about, or what I would teach, is how do they calm down afterwards? How do they release this energy that they've generated within their body? How do they support themselves and do self-care routines so that they're not carrying the angst of whatever just occurred with them long term? And then also to recognize that if they are carrying this stress, that it can change. That you don't have to live this way, that you don't have to have this pain. Like, I'm living proof of it. I am healthier now at 51 than I ever was in my 30s, because I changed the way I think, and I changed the way I interact with my environment, and I use my breath. And so those are the primary things that we're focused on, is how to regulate to navigate a situation. And then how do we get to a point where we can release this energy, transform this energy that's been generated from this situation as well. So we do talk briefly about nutrition and the energy of food and how important that is. And along with movement and how important movement is. But the primary focus is how do we regulate in the moment, and how do we decompress afterwards? And so I go in multiple times across the academy. So I start in the beginning of the academy and I do a 3-hour block of instruction to give them an overview, to help them to start understanding some of how their body operates. A lot of the things that I even said to you guys is some of the content that I put forward with them. And then I go in for every event that is extraordinarily stressful. So I'm there for when they get tased. I'm there when they get gassed. I'm there when they get pepper sprayed. I'm there when they go out for EVOC, which is emergency vehicle operation course. I'm there when they start doing their when they go out and they start doing their patrols for the first time. We talk about how are they going to work through this, because I love getting in with them at the get-go at the academy, because for me, when I went in the military, nobody talked about any of this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
There was no yeah, you go be hua, but then how do I come back to normal? How do I regulate myself and then be like the sweet, nice mom with my kids after I've just had this extraordinarily tough day? Like, how do I transform who I am to be these two people, like this hua warrior and this loving, kind mom at the same time, and loving, kind wife? Like, we're asking a lot of our people who run towards danger, I say, like the military, the police officers, EMTs, ER docs, in these very firefighters, people in these very stressful situations, to regulate themselves in that stressful situation, deal with the trauma, and then go home and be like a wonderful parent and a wonderful spouse. Like, yeah. Who's teaching them how to do this kind of stuff? So we talk about those things throughout, and every single time I go in there, we're doing visualization, positive mindset, and breath work. And we learn different techniques along the way, even techniques of how to go to sleep, maybe using, a progressive relaxation. And I expose them to some of these holistic ideas when we're together, so that they start to understand that even what they've previously experienced because they're bringing to the table baggage, right? Nobody comes to the table without some level of baggage. Well, how do they even transmute some of that? How do they have a healthier life being a police officer, as well as being this person that is like really like alert? Because police officers are supposed to hunt. As a community member, I want you to hunt. I want you to find those criminals. I don't want criminals in my neighborhood. Thank you very much. Right?
Exactly.
I want you to do that. But then I also need you to come back into this place of balance. We're asking them to do a heck of a lot.
We are indeed. Yeah. You know, if you were going to relate this back to, for explanatory sake, Cooper's color code, right? You know, what I hear you saying is, in the moment when you're putting these stressful situations, you're teaching them techniques on how to keep them out of the black and the red colors, but more in that yellow, alert, aware state where they can function, utilize their training, and have positive outcomes, or at least the most positive outcome you can expect from that type of situation. So that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That is great way of putting it. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing. Yes, for sure. And then so what they did is they made me a certified instructor through the state, which is fantastic. So now when I go teach, and I've taught with other police departments so far too. I've done in-service. So not only am I working with the academy, but I've done in-services with the entire police department of the Frederick City Police and Taneytown Police, where I've gone in and spent like 4 hours or 3 to 4 hours with them and just give them a lot of these concepts. So that's been really wonderful too for some of the senior people who aren't exposed to this information either. So yeah, I'm glad that the young guys are getting it, but I also want the older ones who have been through stuff, who don't know maybe that they can transform or how to even regulate now. And they're using other mechanisms to help themselves, whether it be drugs or alcohol, or they have gastrointestinal issues because they're so stressed out, or heart issues or whatever. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And now they can explore these holistic practices. They can start using the techniques to help themselves transmute their own energy. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. This is profound. What I immediately went to is, we were talking earlier about everyone emanates energy. And these are people that go home to their families. And if they're still holding on to that stress, who knows how that is going to manifest on the outside to their family. So through doing this process, you're not only helping this individual, but that's changing the energy of the entire family dynamic too. I mean, this is exponential. This is so huge.
Yeah, it really is. It's a consciousness. It's an awakening for the individual to know that they have an impact just by being, just by existing. Your energy is emanating, and it's important. It's important to not only your family, but to the community, to humanity. Each one of us is unique. And so the more that we become aware of that, then we can help ourselves and we can help others too. And again, I can speak from living this. I was the person that was stressed out coming home, and I was quick tempered back then. Like, I'm all like calm now. But then I was like 0 to 60, in like seconds. And I had all these gastrointestinal issues. I had heart problems. I've had uterine surgeries. I've had it was just, I was a mess. I was a mess because I didn't understand how the stress that I was being exposed to and then generating within myself was transforming my body into a state of not healthy and well,
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like your family connects a little better now, or is thriving in a different way? Because
we've all expanded through this, right? So I'm the mom, as mom that always makes people do stuff, right? Do this, do that, run in the house.
Because I said so.
Yeah. So my children, who are now 27 and 25, but when I really started to explore this, they were in the house, they were teenagers, young teenagers. They have like transformed the way they think about health and well-being as well. As well as my husband. I mean, our whole family has transformed through this and recognized everybody's been to acupuncture. Everybody has had energy work. In fact, my son is, he played college football and had 3 surgeries because of the injuries that he had. He played 5 years because he was redshirted because of an injury. He was like, "Ma, I need some Reiki." Because he could feel it in his body too, especially after surgeries, right? So right after surgery, he had one surgery, he had a Les Frank injury, which is an injury of your the arch of your foot. And for football players, for anybody actually, you may not even run again. And so he's a phenomenal example of both mind and energy work and breath work, because as he was going into surgery, I said, "Don't you forget, you put this in your head and you keep saying this to yourself. I'm going to be stronger and faster. I'm going to be stronger and faster." And so he went into surgery, came out of surgery, had a long recovery. Again, with this injury, some people don't run afterwards, like their career is over. Not only with that mindset, and then he did all the holistic practices. I was doing Reiki on him. We were using other things like homeopathy, and we were using everything. So we were using Western medicine, nutrition, Eastern medicine modalities. Not only did he play 2 years more of football, but he was faster and stronger. And in his 5th year, the entire team won their division, and then they were like amazing. Amazing. And so even today, years after, he has no problem walking, no problem running. So, it's this combination, like we talked about before. It's utilizing all your resources and exploring those different resources too. But mindset, breath work, and energy work, he's my biggest advocate.
Beautiful. Judy, where can people go to find out more about your work?
I have a website, and it's just Judy, Judy Buchanan, Buchanan. And you can find me on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. And those would basically be at Judy Buchanan Energy is how you would find me there.
We'll have links in the show notes as well.
Perfect. Yeah, great. I love to chat with you guys. This was so fun.
This was wonderful.
I agree. Oh, so fascinating, and just so appreciative of you taking the time and sharing your experiences and how powerful this can be for so many people. Such an important thing that you're doing, and grateful for you out there doing it.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you guys too. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us, and live fiercely.